Hi everyone, welcome to Lecture 2. What is web hosting? Well, every website needs a home, and that's where web hosting comes in. Web hosting is simply an internet service that gives your website a home and allows your website to be accessible on the internet. Let's take the internet world versus the real world analogy a little bit further. In the real world, web hosting would be like your actual house. So just take a look at your own house or apartment or wherever you live. Look around. Your house has space, but it's not just empty space. It's constructed so that you have a living room, a kitchen, multiple bedrooms, closets, a garage, and perhaps a nice backyard. You may also have amenities that are already included in your house, such as refrigerator, microwave, washer-dryer, a remodeled front porch, and so forth. In the internet world, web hosting is very similar. With a web hosting plan, you receive space for your website files and you can put them in folders. Usually, the good web hosting plans give you a lot of free amenities like a control panel, email boxes, databases, site builders, shopping carts, and other web apps. So as we see in this slide, web hosting would be equivalent to your own house. Email is like your mailbox. Software that sits on your web hosting service, these are the web apps, control panels, and site builders that I was referring to. These are like the amenities in your house. Now, there are dozens and dozens of different kinds of web hosting services out there. It can be confusing with all the different types, but I think these three here, shared web hosting, reseller hosting, and dedicated server hosting, are the types of web hosting plans that you should really know. Shared hosting is basically your standard hosting plan. The vast majority of websites out there will find a shared hosting plan more than sufficient. Basically, if you have one website, whether it be a business website, a WordPress blog, or even a full-blown e-commerce site, more often than not, shared hosting is good enough. The reason why it's called shared hosting is that your website is sharing computer resources with other customers on the server. 99.9% of the time, this sharing of resources is not a problem. Now, if you plan to be hosting 5 or more e-commerce websites, and all your websites are going to be very database intensive, it's time to start thinking about a reseller or dedicated server plan. What is reseller hosting? Reseller hosting allows you to host multiple websites and gives you the power to rebrand the web hosting services that you've bought as your own. Think of reseller hosting as being a landlord of your own apartment complex. As a landlord, you are renting out space to your tenants. Reseller hosting is the same thing. As a reseller, you're renting out web hosting space for other customers to host their own websites. Reseller hosting is usually great for web designers because as a web designer, you usually have more than one client. You're working with many different websites. Reseller hosting allows you to host all these clients in one web hosting plan. What is dedicated server hosting? Dedicated server hosting is like being a mayor of a new city. When you purchase a dedicated server hosting plan, you're leasing out the entire server. You have control over the server's operating system, hardware, and software. There are no outside customers on this server. This server is dedicated to you, hence the name dedicated server. So with this type of hosting, you really have to know what you're doing. There's a lot more responsibility in managing a dedicated server. It's not just managing a website, it's managing the entire server's maintenance and operation. So this concludes our lecture on web hosting. If you have any questions for me, feel free to ask. In the next section, we're going to get down to the nitty-gritty now and register our domain name and purchase our web hosting plan. See you there.